crafty people. Oops, sorry about that. My name is Jessie, and this is mislaidpages. Welcome to a little whip and chat. I plan to be posting this on Monday, March 1st, and I just thought I'm getting really close to finishing this piece, so I thought you might enjoy sitting with me and while I do a little bit of a whip and chat and see if I can mostly finish this while you're watching. I have about 200 stitches of 310 left. So that's what I'm going to be working on while I chat here. There's going to be lots of color changes after that, but after I get the 310 finished, I have maybe 300 stitches left, and then this Mama Jamma is finished. So this piece is Baba Yaga by thewitchystitcher. And I started this, I want to say last March or April. I'll have to look up and see when I actually started it. So it's almost a year old now. The fact that I'm going to be finishing it within a year of starting it is pretty exciting, to be honest, because I've started so many pieces since I learned that it was okay to be a non-monogamous stitcher. So, because back in the day when I got back into cross-stitching, 3 or 4 years ago now, because I had done cross-stitching a lot when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I had initially gotten into cross-stitch back then, and I would only ever work on one piece at a time. I'd work on one piece and finish it and then move on to another. So I only ever did, I don't know, 2 or 3 pieces back at that time. And then I put it away for a long time. I'm not even really sure why. I just stopped working on it and then got back into it 3 or 4, probably actually 4 or 5 years ago. I got back into it and was still doing the one piece at a time until I really started getting involved in cross-stitching communities and stuff like that, and learning that people have like 100 whips, works in progress. I was like, oh, so it's okay to not finish something and move on to something else. I was like, wow, okay. That was a revolutionary concept to me. So I went a little wild, and last year I started all of the stitch-alongs, all the sals I had. It felt like I was doing 30, oops, I already messed up. Okay, let me, I knew this was going to be dicey. I've never tried talking over much while I'm cross-stitching, except for like Zooms. So, anyway, so, it felt like I was doing 20 stitch-alongs, but realistically I started 6 or 7 last year. But in addition to that, I was doing other projects on the side, additional one-offs like this one. But having been a person who mostly only ever did small cross stitches, or who was working on stitch-alongs and stuff like that, this was a large piece for me at the time. And so I think I was really kind of overwhelmed by it because it was just taking forever, and I wasn't used to, working on pieces that took so long. But anyway, so I started this last year, sometime after quarantine started for the pandemic, and I started working from home with my regular day job. That was about, I want to say that was March 12th. Last year that we got the news that that we were to start teleworking as soon as possible. So for me, that literally meant packing up all of my stuff, getting rid of anything in my desk that I thought might spoil in 2 weeks, because that's what we were told, is that this was going to be a 2-week thing. Okay, my thread is already getting tangled. This is awesome. But we were told we were going to be out of the office for about 2 weeks, so I got rid of everything in my desk that I expected would not last that long, and I watered my plants and gathered up my laptop, because my setup at work is that I have 2 really nice sized monitors and a docking station, and I plug my laptop in, so I was used to taking it back and forth every day. So gathered up my laptop, gathered up all my stuff, and left the office that day, and I have not been back since March 12th, and it's really kind of bizarre. And this is one of the first projects that I remember starting after all of that happened. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. It popped up in my whip go, and I was really excited because I keep every time I pull this out and look at it, I'm like, I really need to work on that. I really want to work on that. Well, whip go gave me a really good excuse to just dive right in, and my goal was to do 500 stitches. That was my goal, and I have blown that goal out of the water. It's really, this project just took me over when I got back into it, and I've been very joyously stitching this for 2 weeks now. This is all I've worked on since Dreaming Girl took me over and I put her aside. Since I finally finished her hair, this is the only thing I have worked on. And I have really enjoyed working on it. I think part of it is it's very meditative, because it's got so much 310, and the design is relatively easy to follow, especially because I'm using Pattern Keeper. So every now and then I will pause. In fact, I need to pause and mark off my line on Pattern Keeper, and that's how I'm keeping up with how many stitches, as well as Pattern Keeper tells me how many stitches I have stitched today, how many stitches I have stitched total on this piece. There are 6,136 total stitches in this piece, and as of the last time that I actually entered my stitches, which does not include the line I'm working on currently, I have 5,564 stitches into this piece. I am officially over 90% finished with this piece, and that is mind-blowing, let me tell you. So I already told you that this is Baba Yaga from the All of my threads are DMC threads. I'm using the called for colors, and this fabric that you see that I'm working on, this is a random linen that I bought from, I think, Michael's, and I can't remember my specific thoughts in picking this, because I know that I had already been purchasing Mystic fabrics and some others prior to starting this piece, and it may have just been that I didn't have any linens in a neutral enough color, and so I found this at Michael's and was like, sure, let's just go with this. Now the packaging told me that this was Evenweave. And I don't know if the camera, I think you can probably tell through the camera that this is absolutely not Evenweave. This is linen. And it's pretty easy to tell the difference between linen and Evenweave, because linen always has the inconsistently sized warp and weft threads. So the threads that are actually woven together to make the cloth can vary greatly in their thickness, which is not something that you ever find in even weaves. That's kind of why they're called even weaves, because every single thread is exactly the same thickness and width. And that's why I tend to prefer to work with even weaves versus linen, because the counting can be much easier because everything is very, very uniform. Linen is sometimes much harder for me to work on because there are occasions, and I don't think you can see because you're not quite close enough, but in this particular section right here where I'm working, there's a super skinny thread, and then there's a normal size thread, but in between these two are like super thick threads. So, counting correctly can be really problematic with linen. And I find that the lower quality the linen, the more that's an issue. Higher quality linens tend to have a little bit more uniformity to them, I find. They also have a texture that that makes it a little bit easier to count, I find. So, just me personally. So, shall we talk about something that's not random fabric facts? I'm not really sure what I planned on talking about today. I thought this is my first time really trying one of these sort of stream of consciousness whip-in chats where I just talk to you while I'm working on something. So I figured I would just let whatever happens happen, because a lot of times if I just get myself talking, I will find things to talk about. Sometimes that's not the case. Other times I can go off on a tangent about goodness knows what. So we'll just see what happens. I will say I was just watching Michelle Garrett, Bendy Stitchy. I was just watching her floss tube from yesterday, her brand new floss tube, where she discussed all of her new releases for Needlework Expo. For those of, I think all of you probably know this by now. I think I've described it this way, but just in case I haven't, Needlework Expo is a wholesale market for the cross stitch community, and so what that means is that it is it's a market where retailers like me, online needlework shops, as well as local needlework shops or little needlework shops, ONSs, LNSs, will gather together to meet designers and other wholesale sellers, like distributors and stuff for cross stitch. We will all get together so that the retailers can see and purchase new designs and new products from the designers and the wholesalers. And so it is not a market for regular cross stitchers. It's not a market for folks that are in the community just purchasing for themselves. It's a market for stores and shop owners and that sort of thing to go and purchase and network and that kind of stuff. And this is my first time participating in anything like this. Ages ago, it seems like ages ago anyway, I actually have attended retailer markets with my brother in the past, but they were not for cross stitching. My brother owns a card and hobby shop, so he sells card games, collectible card games like Magic the Gathering, as well as board games and various other stuff, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. He sells all the things that you need for any of those kinds of games. And so he's been doing that as long as I can remember. I mean, I pretty much grew up hanging out in a comic and card shop. That's just how my life has been. So, so that being the case, as I got older, I would actually go to conventions with him, and I've been to a couple of retailer summits and conventions with him. So I've been in this kind of environment before, but this is my first time going as the business owner, as the person who makes all the decisions about the purchasing and all of that stuff. So it's exciting, but it's also kind of nerve-wracking. And if I'm being honest, I'm having panic reactions in some respects. And I think the panic comes more just from me feeling uncertain about whether I've got everything covered that I need to be covering. I think I've talked a lot about this before, but I have this innate need to do all of the things and be all of the things. And so I often worry that I'm not doing enough, I'm not being enough, I'm not handling enough. And so that's kind of where I am with this. And a lot of it is because I don't know what to expect. I don't know what is expected of me. So it's just, there's a lot of unknowns, and whenever there's a lot of unknowns, my anxiety tends to start working on me, and making things more difficult. So as excited as I am, I'm also really thankful that Expo is coming up next weekend and that it will be over very soon because I'm all the anxiety is just kind of making me crazy. So making me very uncomfortable, I should say. But yeah, I'm excited, but also anxious, and I don't like the anxious feelings. But it's all going to be good. Things have been going really well with the shop. I appreciate all of you who have put in pre-orders, and there are a number of pre-orders. I am super thankful that so many folks are shopping with me, have chosen to use me as their online needle shop. That's really gratifying and very I feel very blessed because you have a lot of options, some of whom I actually use myself. So, so I totally understand, that I am not the only game in town. So to have folks pick me is pretty exciting. I might get quiet here just for a second because there is some counting going on, and I'm not always great with counting while talking. So let me just make sure that I'm doing this correctly, because I do these weird things. I don't like to count large numbers of stitches. So if it's going to be over like 6 or 7 stitches, what I start to do is I make other landmarks for myself. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody. But this particular shape that I'm stitching now, rather than stitching this line all the way across to where it is supposed to meet over here, I'm actually going to go up and stitch the little tip point here and then come back down and stitch this, because creating this tip is far less counting, and then it will give me the landmark I need to finish off this line. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how my brain works with these things. So yeah, so then I'm just gonna do, now there's 4 stitches, but I'm gonna do 3 because there's one that makes the very tippy top of this particular line, and that one stitch goes here. Finish that one off, and then we do the 4th, and there we go. Now we have that line. Okay. I don't watch a lot of other people stitch, so I don't really know how to compare myself with other folks, or at least what I mean is I don't know how my stitching compares with the way that other people stitch. I have just recently started this method. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm putting the needle down and then immediately finding where it needs to come up so that my thread is staying on top of my fabric here, and then I'm pulling it all through, which is a really nice, efficient way of stitching, I've found. The only issue with it is that it does really rub your threads raw, and so you probably noticed a minute ago where I had a piece of the thread actually disconnect completely. So the tail frayed off and came out in my stitching. Because I'm using DMC, I'm not so worried about it. And I probably could mitigate that somewhat by using some thread magic or thread wax or something like that. I just haven't bothered. Partly because I think with this particular piece, I don't necessarily mind if the thread looks a little frayed. I think it kind of works into the overall feel of this design. So I'm okay with it. I'm less okay with it when I'm using more expensive threads. So if I were using Weeks Dye Works, or if I'm using my hand-dyed threads from Rolanda, or dyeing for Cross Stitch or Brandy at Bestitch Me, I might be less inclined, because the fraying actually means you're going to end up using more floss overall. Because it'll shorten those ends for you, which means that you either need to cut really short lengths, which I hate doing because then I have to change up threads all the time, or you run out of the that particular thread sooner than you would have because the tail is frayed, and you have to end that thread earlier than you wanted to, if that makes any sense. So what else is going on? So I told you I was watching Michelle G, and she was talking about her expo new releases, but she was also talking about something that I mentioned in my last floss tube, which is a plan, or a stitch along that I'm going to join in for March. I think she's doing it with a group of her friends. They're actually having a Zoom chat today to start working on it together, but I'm just going to join in by using the hashtag because I think it's awesome. And the hashtag is monochromatic-ish March. So her group of friends wanted to do monochromatic March because they all wanted to work on something that was just one color. But she has a piece, I believe it's the pandemic, no, it's modern folk embroidery, and I can't remember what the name of the piece actually is, but she's going to be working on a design from modern folk embroidery, and she had picked out 2 colors that she wanted to use for that design. So hers is not technically monochromatic, so she decided to go with hashtag monochromatic-ish, And I'm totally down for that, and decided that I will join in on that hashtag using my pandemic sampler from Long Dog Samplers, because if you recall, my pandemic sampler, actually I think it's just called pandemic, not pandemic sampler. I don't want folks to get it confused with another pandemic sampler that other folks are starting in March. But the Long Dog Samplers pandemic, I am stitching in two hand-dyed colorways from Kathy at Dying for Cross Stitch. So I'm using Decadence, which is a gorgeous deep tonal purple, and I'm also using Sangria, which is a more magenta wine purple, which I really, really love. So I've decided that I will join in, since I already have that started and I want to work on it some more. I'm going to use monochromatic-ish March, hashtag monochromatic-ish March, to get that out and start working on that. So I don't know if I'll do that today, simply because my main goal for today, and today is Sunday, I'm posting this on Monday, I think. I'm filming this on Sunday, February 28th is what I should specify. I'll probably post this on March 1st. But my main goal for the day is to finish this piece, and I am so close, I can taste it. Now the black is going to go pretty quickly. The other parts are going to go much more slowly, but it's only about 11:30 as I'm stitching now. And like I said, I only have about 200 black stitches left. Less now because I've done like 3 or 4 rows while we've been talking. So I have less than 200 black stitches, and then I've got about 300 colored stitches, and then I'm finished. So I feel like it's probably going to be a day-long thing. Like, this will probably be mostly the only thing I do today, if I'm able to finish this today. But if by some miracle I get this finished and I'm still in a cross-stitchy mood, then I will pull out my my Long Dog Samplers Pandemic, and I will work on it some. Even if I only put in a few stitches, I think that'll be fun to get it started today. Technically, it's a March thing, but Michelle and her friends were not able to get together on Monday, because Monday is a hard day to do social things. And I know my Monday is packed tomorrow. I have meetings on top of meetings. In addition to after work, I have all of my normal Monday stuff to do with my Etsy shop. Because what I typically do, and I don't discuss this a lot, but what I typically do with Etsy is I ship orders on Mondays and Fridays. So because it is too time consuming to just ship orders every single day of the week. I don't often have orders every single day, but I'd rather take 1 or 2 hours shipping out several orders than take, on 2 days a week, then spend 30 minutes shipping one order every day of the week. It's just a little bit more efficient if I save them up and do them a bunch at a time. And that usually gets everything out well within the processing times for my orders and stuff like that. So most people seem to be pretty happy with the speed at which I send things out. So but yeah, Mondays are pretty packed. So Mondays I try to put out any orders that have collected over the weekend. If I have new stuff to list, I try to list it, try to get that stuff going on Mondays. And I generally will actually make listings live. My brain is not working right now. I will make the listings live Monday afternoons, Wednesday afternoons, and Friday afternoons, depending on just how many listings I have. Okay, so I'm finished with this thread. I'm going to see if I can flip this over without knocking the camera. That might be... Okay, the cord's going to get... There we go. Okay. But you can't see. There we go. Okay. Here's my back, y'all. Look at my back. I'm just going to tuck this thread in. I do this thing where if I'm finishing a thread, I tuck it under 1 or 2 stitches to get it started, and then I go back under those stitches and a few extras. just to make sure that it's well secured. And I try not to stab my finger with the needle while I'm doing it. The needle doesn't want to cooperate. And this one is thoroughly trapped around the needle. So this is the other danger of stitching the way that I have been. I don't know if you can tell, but this, oh, now it pulls out just fine. Never mind. Sometimes the thread gets thoroughly knotted up around the eye of the needle, and it's a pain. Okay, let's spin this back around. Which way did I bring it? Okay. Okay, so next time I might actually just, I might not do that while you're live on camera. I might pause the camera and do that next time. Okay, so now I got to start some more threads. I am going to pause it now because this is going to be boring for you while I pull out a whole new length of DMC. Okay, and we are back. And I have my needle threaded. I like to do the loop start method when I am using a solid color floss like this, where I don't have to worry about variegation and stuff. So I'm just gonna do that. That's not the right one. So the loop start is basically you double over your thread. So I've taken one really long piece of thread and I folded it in half to create a loop at one end, and then I just thread my needle through that loop. So I started with the loop on top of the fabric, and then I went under and came up, and then I put my needle through the loop, and now I'm going to put my needle back in the hole where I initially had the loop, the thread going into to start with. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not sure if I described that very well. But that's a loop start, if you've never seen a loop start. And now, since I laid my foundation row last time, on the last pass, now all I have to do, I don't have to worry about counting this line. I can just look at my pattern and know that I need to do one stitch longer than the previous line, and I'll be golden. So a lot of times when I start with a new thread, I get a lot of additional resistance, and sometimes that ends up with a knot. So we'll see if the thread is kind to me right now. Some threads are totally fine. Some threads are really finicky and knotty. It just depends on how that particular thread feels at that time. Okay, so I was talking about March plans, so I'm definitely going to do monochromatic-ish March. I don't know what that will mean as far as how much I actually stitch on my long dog sampler. Let me slow down and say that correctly. I don't know how much stitching I'll actually get. I'll probably, just because it seems to be my sort of a running theme now, I'll probably try to get at least 500 stitches on it this month, in the month of March. So there will be that. WhipGo, the numbers were called Friday, actually, after I recorded flosstube. So another thing that I'm going to try to get done today, once I get this finished, is I will start setting up my WhipGo pieces, my focus pieces for March. So WhipGo, if you're not familiar, it's very similar to Bingo. I generally talk about this on flosstube every week. It's a board set up very much like Bingo. It has WIPGO across the top, and then numbers along the side. But Jessie Marie, who is the person who created the whole thing, she actually has numbered each of the boxes, and so she calls a number instead of like G1 or P2, she will call just a number between 1 and 25, which is totally fine. I have those numbers on my WhipGo board too. So the numbers that have been called for March are 10 and 24. So number 10 for me is Stiach number 5. That Mambo number 5. So Stiach number 5 is the piece that says, "As for me and my house, we shall." And then folks who did Stiach number 5 when it was going, when the stitch along was active, were able to choose. Well, you can anytime you want to, but there were several pre-done choose your own endings that M designed herself, and then a lot of folks will do their very own things. They'll design their very own ending and stuff. But what I decided, because I was not actively involved in Stiach during season 5, if you want to call it that. I was not actively involved at that time. I didn't learn about Stiach until season 6, which was home is where the and I finished mine to be home is where the kitties are, or the fur babies are. And I put a picture of my 3 fur babies on there. At the time, I had a 4th fur baby. Her name is Goldie. Goldie was or is a senior cat. She's getting close to 14 now. She did not get along with the babies. We adopted my 3 current fur babies in March 3 years ago. So we're coming up on their gotcha day. I think it's been 3 years. It might be 4 years. What is it? 21. So we got them in 2018. So 4 years, because we got them the spring after my mother passed away. So we got them in 2018. Their gotcha day is coming up soon. So they are all about 3.5. No, they're already 4. Okay, I can't do math and stitch at the same time. Regardless, so I think this is their 4th anniversary or 3rd anniversary of. It's been 3 or 4 years. Let's move on. The point is, we got the 3 babies for a little while because they were all about 6 months old when we adopted them. Goldie was 12 or so at the time, maybe 11. And in the beginning, things went okay. Goldie grudgingly accepted them. She did not want to be near them or anything like that, but things were okay. But I think it was halfway through the next year. So it would have been a year after their, in the year after we got them. So not the year that we had adopted them, but the following year. Goldie started having she started being really incredibly aggressive with them. And we tried to mitigate that by separating them and, various other things. We tried a lot of different stuff. We made sure that we had plenty of cat boxes. We made sure that we fed them separately. We did all kinds of stuff. But she continued to be incredibly territorial and extra aggressive. And it got to the point where she was fighting with them. And she was actually starting to be so violent that she was drawing blood. So at that point, Goldie had to be permanently separated. And we took her to the vet to make sure that everything was okay. That's one of the things that you're supposed to do when one of your cats starts acting in an aggressive way when they haven't been overtly aggressive before. She did have a bladder infection, which we treated. But other than that, she had, the various signs of old age because she was an old cat. But there was nothing else going on with her other than her just being extremely territorial with the babies. So, like I said, we had to permanently separate her. So we had her in a completely different room of the house. And it wasn't going well. So because there were 3 younger cats who got along and 1 older cat who didn't get along, Goldie was unfortunately the one who had to be put off in a separate room. Granted, the room that she was put in is now my craft room, so it's a large room. It's not like she was put in a closet or anything like that. But because she was in a separate room that was not at the time set up for anybody to spend time in here. I mean, there was like a chair You know, there was nowhere to, it wasn't a room that you could hang out in. It wasn't a room to spend time in. So Goldie was not getting any real time with people, because just with the business of dealing with daily life and being exhausted from work and, you know, all this sort of stuff, I would come in and spend a few minutes with her every day to make sure that she was getting, you know, contact and affection and all that sort of stuff. And obviously we'd feed her and we'd take care of her cat box and all that sort of stuff. So she wasn't, you know, it's not like we locked her in a room and never saw her again, but she obviously was not getting enough attention. You know, it became fairly obvious that she just needed more than we were able to provide at that point, because we could not keep her with the other cats, and it didn't make sense to put them in a room separate, and put her in the rest of the house, you know, because of the situation and all that sort of stuff. So ultimately, last year, middle of last year, I think, we made the very, very difficult decision to rehome Goldie. And it's not something that I have ever done before in my life. My other two cats, previous to my current fur babies, Bandit and Q-Tip, I had both of them from the time that they were about 6 weeks old. They were a year apart, but I had both of them from about the time they were 6 weeks old until they passed away. Q-Tip was 18 when she passed. And she certainly had her old age issue. She became deaf, which took me a long time to understand that she was deaf, because she would just come into a room and she would scream at you. And screaming is the only way I can describe it. Like, she would literally scream at you. And it was the longest time before I realized that the reason she was doing that was because she couldn't hear herself anymore. And then it became kind of funny, because she would notice you were there and she would just scream. Because she's like, "Hi, how are you?" And she didn't know how loud she was, and she was so sweet. So yeah, and I think she had some thyroid issues, but by the time I got a chance to take her to the vet, she had already gone. So I didn't get a chance to actually get her checked out for that. I'd started to see some signs, but then the next thing I knew, she just passed away. So Bandit, unfortunately, he was only 12 when he passed. He unfortunately developed some kind of mass in his chest, and we didn't know about it until he started having trouble breathing. And we took him to the vet, you know, to find out what was going on. And by then it was already advanced enough that it had blocked his airway. So there was nothing we could do, and it was incredibly sad. But anyway, the point was that, you know, it was a very, very difficult decision. I'm not the kind of person who believes that you give away your old animals just because they're old, but we were in a situation where we could not provide what I thought was the quality of care that she deserved. And so we ended up finding someone local who specializes in not exactly hospice, but she specializes in taking care of senior animals. And she was in a situation where I think she was between fosters or something at the time. So she was in a situation where she could literally give all her time to Goldie. And Goldie could be in a one cat household, and, you know, basically just enjoy her golden years being a single cat. So it was a really awesome situation. We were able to put her in a home where she was going to be loved and cared for all by herself, which is what she needed. You know, so if we had not gotten the babies, she would have stayed here until the end of her life. But we made the decision to get the new cats, and, you know, just unfortunately that's how everything worked out. So it was not at all an easy decision. But we did have 4 babies at one time. You can hear Luna fussing in the background. She's playing with something. Let's see. I did not mark that one. So anyway, yeah, so now there's just the 3 babies. They get along very, very well. Goldie was the only cat we've ever had who had issues getting along with other animals. And I never was sure why that was. She was totally fine with Bandit and Q-Tip until she was 3 or 4, I think. And it was the strangest thing because one day I took Bandit to get groomed. So Bandit was like a Maine Coon or Ragdoll mix. So he was a giant fluffy monster and he was such a cuddle bug. But because he was a giant fluffy monster, his hair would often get matted. And so we had to have him groomed regularly, or semi-regularly. Sometimes I would shave him and sometimes I would actually get him professionally groomed. But this one time I had taken him to get him professionally groomed by a friend of my mom's. She has a truck or a van that not a van. It's almost like a food truck style truck because it's big and open on the inside, and she has a whole setup where she can bathe and groom cats and dogs, and she travels around and she does house calls to do grooming. So my mom was already using her to get her dogs groomed. So I took Bandit over to the truck to get him groomed. And when I brought him home, Goldie acted as if I had brought home a demon. She just suddenly, it was like she didn't recognize him. She thought he was evil and must be stopped. You know, she just went, she went all kinds of bonkers. And she would have these periods where she would calm down and she'd be okay, and then she'd all of a sudden just decide he was the devil again and start attacking him, and that went on, you know, pretty much for the rest of Bandit's life. And Goldie would pick on Q-Tip too occasionally because pretty much it was like Goldie needed to be dominant for some reason. She was the youngest and she was the smallest of the 3 cats at the time, but she always seemed to need to assert her dominance. And so even though the other cats were older and much larger, she was, anytime they showed any kind of weakness, she would pounce on that. So never did understand why. But she, even though she would mess with them and she would go after them occasionally, it was nothing like what we experienced between her and Luna, Loki, and Momo. And she specifically would go after Loki. He was her main target, and she but when she drew blood that time, it was on Luna. So yeah, it was, she never drew blood with the other 2 cats. I mean, she definitely did her fair share of asserting dominance, but she never got that aggressive with the 2 of them. So I don't know if it was maybe a combination of old age and new cats or what it was, but I do know that Goldie is much happier now than she had been the last year or 2 here, so that's a good thing. Trying to remember where I was going with that thought, but yeah. So in my life I've had 6 cats total, and 3 of them are my babies that I have with me now. And then at one time I had 3 all together with Bandit, Q-Tip, and Goldie. So that is my pet history in a nutshell. Let's see, we have, when I started back with the new thread, I had 118 stitches of 310 left. I feel like I can probably get through all of them with this one thread, but I might need to start a second one. We'll just have to see. But after this row that I'm working on, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows left, and each row at this point is getting shorter and shorter because we're working towards a peak. So I am almost done with the 310. So what does this week have in store? So this is going to be a really busy week for me. I don't know if it's going to be a busy week for y'all, but in addition to the fact that Needlework Expo is coming up this weekend starting Saturday, I have a really packed week at my day job too, because apparently the beginning of the month is when everybody needs to have all of their meetings about everything. So I think I have 2 or 3 meetings every day until Friday. And I just have to say that I prefer Zoom meetings to in-person meetings in a lot of ways. Not the least of which, or the one of the biggest reasons being that in a Zoom meeting, I don't have to have my camera on or my sound on. So that means that people can't see me rolling my eyes when I disagree with things that they have to say, or whatever. Which is really awesome. But also it just means that there's less pressure, because I'm not sitting physically in a room with people having to be really attentive 100% of the time and all that sort of stuff. I can be a little bit more relaxed. I can wear whatever I want to wear. I can lean back in my chair and not worry about looking unprofessional, that kind of stuff. So in general, I prefer these online meetings, but they're still really mentally exhausting. And in some cases, I find that they're actually more mentally exhausting than just being in a room with the people in the office. And I'm not really sure why that is. I don't know if it's because there's more opportunity for misunderstandings, I think. Because sometimes people are on camera, sometimes they're not, but more often than not, somebody's talking about something that they can't show you physically. Even though we have screen shares and stuff, it's not always possible to share the thing that you're talking about, and so people are misunderstanding because there's no visuals, and misunderstanding because maybe half of us are on camera and half of us are not on camera, so you can't see facial cues and things like that, and all those different kinds of things. And I think that makes it just so much more taxing. And maybe it is more taxing because I'm not in a place that gives my brain additional cues that this is what we need to do, this is how we need to behave, this is how we need to pay attention. Because I'm not in that place with those additional cues, maybe it just takes more effort on my part to be mentally present in that, and maybe that's why it's so much more taxing. So, and some of these meetings are easy meetings, what I call easy meetings, and basically an easy meeting is where I know that there's very little that I need to input. So I'm there because I need to be aware of a situation that's going on, or I need to be cognizant of the discussions that are happening about a thing, but probably I'm not actually needing to volunteer any information. So those are easier meetings. But I have a feeling that the meetings this week are going to be much more, they're going to be stuff that I have to do a lot of contributing to. So I'm going to be exhausted, and it's going to be exhausting all the way right into Needlework Expo, which in its own right will be exhausting, because I'm not a networking kind of person. Like, I enjoy interacting with people and meeting new people and all this kind of stuff, but I don't do networking well. Okay, I have to switch threads, so give me just a second. Okay, we're in the home stretch now. This is going to be the last length of thread. There are 31 black stitches left. So, and I'm going to stop the whip and chat once I finish those 31 stitches, because the last 300 or 400 stitches are a ton of color changing, and it's going to require lots of flipping the scroll over and all kinds of gyrations, and that's just way too complicated to do on camera. So, but the good news is that you will be here with me when I put the last black stitch into Baba Yaga, and then you'll get to see the finished piece on flosstube on Friday. So I am so excited. I have no idea yet how I'm going to finish this. I shouldn't say I have no idea. I have some ideas, but I'm not really sure what I want to do to finish this. I'm kind of thinking of, I don't know if flat fold is the right term. I think it's the right term, but I'm kind of thinking of a flat fold finish that is then attached to a wooden piece that sort of echoes this arch at the top. Why is my thread getting so this? Normally the thread does not get this tangled when I'm not on camera. For some reason the thread is just being a camera hog or something, and now a ham. Okay, the thread is just being all kinds of annoying. Okay, get that straightened out. But I'm thinking of like a flat fold finish and then affixing it to a piece of wood or something like that. So I'm not thinking to go with a traditional framing for this one. I want something that's a little different and maybe a little bit more rustic. So yeah, a piece of weathered looking wood with an arch to it. And then I'm envisioning the actual cross stitch done in a flat fold kind of style, but with some batting or something underneath to give it some puff, so it's not flat. But yeah, so that's sort of what I'm envisioning. I don't know when I will get that done, because what happens in my brain is I have an idea, and I have no idea how to make that reality. And so then the procrastination sets in, because I don't know how to do it. And so because I don't know how to do it, it's intimidating. And when it's intimidating, my brain is like, let's just put that on the back burner then. And realistically, all I need to do is just a little bit of research and look up some finishing tutorials, and I will probably get all of the information that I need. But my brain is like, you don't know how to do this. This is scary. Let's just not do it. I don't know if anybody else's brain works like that, but that's certainly how my brain works. Like, never mind. That's too complicated. I don't immediately know how to do this, so let's think of something else, or just never do it. So, oh, I just realized I never finished talking about WhipGo. Oh goodness. Okay, so box 10 is stitch number 5. Oh yeah, because I got off on the tangent about the cats. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is weird, this stream of consciousness thing. Okay, so I talked about the cats because so stitch number 5 is as for me and my house we shall. I'm choosing to finish it with Obey the Giant Head. So the giant head is a thing from Rick and Morty. I think it's from the first or second season, where these giant head aliens abducted the entire planet Earth to drag Earth into a contest to find out which planet had the best music. And it's silly and it's hilarious and it's one of my favorite episodes. So Obey the Giant Head is how I'm going to finish that. So that's what I'll be working on for box 10 for WhipGo, and then box 24 is Linen and Threads 2020 Stitch Along. So that will be my other focus piece for March. And I have to say, like, I wanted different draws this time. It's not that I don't like either of these pieces. It's just I'm not feeling it for March. I kind of want to do different stuff for March. I was really hoping that Animal Almanac was going to pop up, and it did not pop up, because for whatever reason now my brain is like, Animal Almanac, let's do that one. So yeah, so I'm not as excited as I want to be. So we'll see how this month's goals go. Because I have a feeling that if I'm not happy about, like, if I'm not super into it, that it's gonna really tank my stitching in general. Because again, I have this habit of avoidance. So if I'm supposed to be working on a specific thing and I don't want to work on that specific thing, then I end up doing this inadvertent punishment thing where, well, since you don't want to do what you're supposed to do, you're not allowed to do anything at all. And then I'll end up just knitting for the entire month of March, which, I like knitting, so that's not a problem, but it really does hinder my ability to do anything that I want to do in March because, I have this weird habit of punishing myself by going, okay, well, you don't get to do anything at all then. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think I'm going to start out with stitch just because in my brain as I'm thinking about it, I have some interest in that. So I'll start out with that. And then I'll see about linens and threads. That one might just be a box that I put aside for now. We'll have to see. What I might do is if I'm really not feeling it, I will pick a different box to work on. And I will finish some other month's goal early. And then I will come back to linen and threads when I'm feeling it more. Because cross-stitching I shouldn't punish myself with crafts. Or about crafts. If I'm not feeling it, it's okay. Like, these are my own goals, and nothing bad is going to happen to me if I don't complete the goals that I have set for myself. And that's something that I always have to remind myself is like, these are my own standards. These are my own goals, my own benchmarks, and there's literally no one who's going to punish me if I choose not to meet them, or if I fail to meet them, or whatever. Oh my gosh, this is the last stitch of black. Oh my gosh. Okay. And there it is, y'all. That is, let me make it official. There are now there are 0 stitches of 310 left in Baba Yaga. I have stitched every single stitch of 310. 0 left. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I don't even know how many stitches of black. I think probably 4,000 stitches of black in this piece. Wow. That's an accomplishment, y'all. Look how pretty it is. I know it's upside down for you, unless I decide to flip this the other way around. I don't know what's going to be more discombobulating for you, having to watch the whole thing upside down or watching it right side up, but my hands are coming from the top to the bottom, so I don't know. We'll see when I edit it how it goes. But there we go. All the 310. Every single stitch of the 310 is in this piece now. Oh my gosh. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip this around, and while I continue talking, I will let you look at it right side up. Okay, there we go, right side up. So probably in editing, I will just leave the whole thing upside down the whole time. I think that's going to be easier. So anyway, this is the top portion of Baba Yaga, and all of the 310 is finished. I'm trying to figure out, let me see how many more stitches I have. That's 110, 200, 350 or so. So less than 400 stitches left total in the piece, none of which are 310. All the 310 is in. So the parts that I have to fill in, all of these symbols on the sides will get filled in, as well as, pretty much any opening you see in the black border is going to get filled in. And then there's some smoke that comes in from the chimney around the moon here. And then there are a couple of little random motifs around the outside that need to be stitched. So it's, what time is it? It's almost 12:30. So it took me about an hour to do those, the 200 stitches there. And I have a little bit less than 400 stitches left. So I totally see this being done today, which is super, super exciting. And then on Friday, I'll show you what the whole thing looks like. I might even iron it for you so that you can see the whole thing. We'll see. But wow, that's phenomenal, y'all. That is phenomenal. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to wrap up. So I was talking about March March plans, monochromatic-ish March. Hopefully I'll start that today. If not, certainly I will work on it sometime this week, so I can get that in. But then there will also be Stiach number 5 and Linen and Threads, possibly 2020 sampler, possibly. Those are the main things. Another thing I'm going to do in March is March 31st is my dad's birthday. And those of you who've been following for a while know that my mother, father, and my stepfather have all passed. I have a piece from Glendon Place, a special edition chart and floss pack from Glendon Place called, what is it called? I have it right here. I did have it right here. It's called Someone We Love. I can put it right here. So that's convenient. So I have this chart from Glendon Place called Someone We Love, because someone we love is in heaven. There's a little bit of heaven in our home. So the 31st of March is my dad's birthday, and I like to, my thought with this piece is to work on it on dates that are meaningful to me in relation to my parents. So I don't think I actually got a chance to stitch on this on December 21st, which is my mom and stepdad's anniversary. But my dad's birthday is coming up at the end of March, so I think I'm going to make a plan to bring this out and stitch on this on his birthday. The last time I stitched on it was in October, and I did that in honor of my mother's birthday. So I'll stitch on it on my dad's birthday. My stepdad's birthday is May 20th, so I will bring it out again on May 20th. My mom's birthday is October 8th, and I'm trying to think. So yeah, March 31st, May 20th, October 8th, and then probably December 21st. Those will be the main days that I work on this, just because all of those dates are important to me in relation to my 3 parents. So that's coming up in March as well. And yeah, so I think that's what's going on for right now. I hope you enjoyed this whip and chat. I hope to do more of these in the future. I don't know if stitchy stuff is interesting to y'all, or if you prefer to see diamond painting. You can certainly let me know in the comments. I do have my Hamsa white elephant that I need to get back to. I haven't worked on it since the last whip and chat I posted. So I do want to get back on that. So if you prefer to watch diamond painting, then let me know. If you enjoyed this stitch and chat, then let me know that too. I'd be happy to do more of these, especially on pieces that are pretty easy to work on while I'm talking. So that's definitely a thing. If you're new here and you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button if you liked what you saw, so that you can continue to see more content from me. You can also hit that like button if you like this specific video. And if you want to be notified anytime I post anything new, definitely hit that bell, and you'll get a notification every time I post anything. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope to hear from you and see you again soon. Definitely there will be Woolly Wednesday this week and flosstube this week, and then we'll have to see how next week goes, because it's going to be a busy weekend with Needlework Expo. Until then, make sure that you're all drinking your water, make sure you're staying hydrated, make sure that you are taking all the meds that you need to take, including vitamins, and remember that good enough is good enough. And I'll see you next time.